Okay, hi everyone, welcome back to this video series on cryptocurrency. The root of trust. Traditional security architecture is based upon a concept called the root of trust, which is a trusted core used as the foundation for the security of the overall system or application. Security architecture is developed around the root of trust as a series of concentric circles like layers in an onion, extending trust outward from the center. Each layer builds upon more trusted inner layer using access controls, digital signatures, encryption, and other security primitives. As the software systems become more complex, they are more likely to contain bugs which make them vulnerable to security compromise. As a result, the more complex a system becomes, the harder it is to secure. The root of trust concept ensures that most of the trust is placed within the least complex part of the system and therefore least vulnerable part of the system. While more complex software is layered around it, this security architecture is repeated at different scales, first establishing the root of trust within the hardware of a single system, then extending that root of trust through the operating system to higher level system services, and finally across many servers layered in concentric circles of diminishing trust. Bitcoin security architecture is different. In Bitcoin, the consensus system creates a trusted public ledger that is completely decentralized. A correctly validated blockchain uses the genesis block as the root of trust, building a chain of trust up to the current block. Bitcoin systems can and should use the blockchain as their root of trust when designing a complex Bitcoin application that consists of services on many different systems. You should carefully examine the security architecture in order to ascertain where the trust is being placed. Ultimately, the only thing that should be explicitly trusted is a fully validated blockchain. If your application explicitly or implicitly vests trust in anything but the blockchain, that should be a source of concern because it introduces vulnerability. A good method to evaluate the security architecture of your application is consider each individual component and evaluate the hypothetical scenario where the component is completely compromised and under the control of a malicious actor. Take each component of your application in turn and assess the impacts on the overall security if that component is compromised. If your application is no longer secure when components are compromised, that shows that you have misplaced trust in those components. A Bitcoin application without vulnerabilities should be vulnerable only to a compromise of the Bitcoin consensus mechanism, meaning that the root of trust is based on the strongest part of the Bitcoin security architecture. The numerous examples of hacked Bitcoin exchanges serve to underscore this point because their security architecture and design fails even under the most casual scrutiny. These centralized implementations have invested trust explicitly in numerous components outside the Bitcoin blockchain, such as hot wallets, centralized ledger databases, vulnerable encryption keys, and similar schemes. User security best practices. Humans have used physical security controls for thousands of years. By comparison, our experience with digital security is less than 50 years old. Modern general purpose operating systems are not very secure and not particularly suited to storing digital money. Our computers are constantly exposed to external threats via always on internet connections. They run thousands of software components from hundreds of authors, often the unconstrained access to the user's files. A single piece of rogue software among the many thousands installed on your computer can compromise your keyboard and files, stealing any Bitcoin stored in wallet applications. The level of computer maintenance required to keep a computer virus free and Trojan free is beyond the skill level of all but a tiny minority of computer users. Despite the decades of research and advancements in information security, digital assets are still woefully vulnerable to a determined adversary. Even the most highly protected and restricted systems in financial services companies, intelligence agencies, defense contractors are frequently breached. Bitcoin creates digital assets that have intrinsic value and can be stolen and diverted to new owners instantly and irrevocably. This creates a massive incentive for hackers. Until now, hackers had to conveniently information or account tokens such as credit cards and bank accounts info value after compromising them. Despite the difficulty of fencing and laundering financial information, we have seen ever escalating thefts. Bitcoin escalates this problem because it doesn't need to be fenced or laundered. It is intrinsic value within a digital asset. Fortunately, Bitcoin also creates the incentives to improve computer security, whereas previously the risk of computer compromise was vague and indirect. Bitcoin makes these risks clear and obvious. Holding Bitcoin on a computer serves to focus the user's mind on the need for improved computer security. As a direct result, the proliferation and increased adoption of Bitcoin and other digital currencies, we have seen an escalation in both hacking techniques and security solutions. In simple terms, hackers now have a very juicy target and users have a clear incentive to defend themselves. Over the past 3 years, as a direct result of Bitcoin adoption, we have seen tremendous innovation in the realm of information security in the form of hardware encryption, key storage and hardware wallets, multi-signature technology and digital escrow. In the following sections, we'll examine various best practice for practical user security. Physical Bitcoin storage. Because most users are far more comfortable with physical security than information security, a very effective method for protecting Bitcoin is to convert them into physical form. Bitcoin keys are nothing more than long numbers. This means that they can be stored in a physical form, such as printed on paper or etched on a metal coin. Securing the keys then becomes as simple as physically securing the printed copy of the Bitcoin keys. A set of Bitcoin keys that is printed on paper is called a paper wallet, and therefore many free tools can be used to create them. I personally keep the vast majority of my Bitcoin, 99% or more, stored on paper wallets encrypted with BIP38 with multiple copies locked in safes. Keeping Bitcoin offline is called cold storage, and it is one of the most effective security techniques. A cold storage system is where the keys are generated on an offline system, one never connected to the internet, and stored either offline in paper or on a digital wallet such as a USB memory key. Hardware wallets. In the long term, Bitcoin security increasingly will take the form of hardware tamper-proof wallets. Unlike a smartphone or desktop computer, a Bitcoin hardware wallet has just one purpose: to hold Bitcoin security. Without general purpose software to compromise with limited interfaces, hardware wallets can deliver an almost foolproof level of security to non-expert users. I expect to see hardware wallets become the predominant method of Bitcoin storage. For example, such as hardware wallets see the Trezor. Balancing risk. Although most users are rightly concerned about Bitcoin theft, there is an even bigger risk. Data files get lost all the time. If they contain Bitcoin, the loss is much more painful. In the effort to secure their Bitcoin wallets, users must be very careful not to go too far and end up losing the Bitcoin. In July 2011, a well-known Bitcoin awareness and education project lost almost 7,000 Bitcoin. In their effort to prevent theft, the owners had implemented a complex series of encrypted backups. In the end, they actually lost the encryption keys, making the backups worthless and losing a fortune. Like hiding money by burying it in the desert. If you secure your Bitcoin too well, you might not be able to find it again. Diversifying risk. Would you carry your entire net worth cash in your wallet? Most people would consider that reckless, yet Bitcoin users often keep all their Bitcoin in a single wallet. Instead, users should spread the risk among multiple and diverse Bitcoin wallets. Prudent users will keep only a small fraction, perhaps less than 5%, of their Bitcoin in an online or mobile wallet as pocket change. The rest should be split between a few different storage mechanisms such as desktop wallet and offline cold storage, multisig, and governance. Whenever a company or individual stores large amounts of Bitcoin, they should consider using a multi-signature Bitcoin address. Multi-signature addresses secure funds by requiring more than one signature to make a payment. The signing keys should be stored in a number of different locations and under the control of different people. In a corporate environment, for example, the keys should be generated independently and held by several company executives to ensure no single person can compromise the funds. Multi-signature addresses can offer redundancy where a single person holds several keys that are stored in different locations. Survivability. One important security consideration that is overlooked is availability, especially in the context of incapacity or death of the key holder. Bitcoin users are told to use complex passwords and keep their keys secure and private, not sharing them with anyone. Unfortunately, the practice makes it almost impossible for the user's family to recover any funds if the user is not available to unlock them. In most cases, in fact, the families of Bitcoin users might be completely unaware of the existence of Bitcoin funds. If you have a lot of Bitcoin, you should consider sharing access details with a trusted relative or lawyer. A more complex survivability scheme can be set up with multi-signature access and estate planning through a lawyer specialised as a digital asset executor. Conclusion. Bitcoin is completely new, unprecedented and complex technology. Over time, we will develop better security tools and practices that are easier to use by non-experts. For now, Bitcoin users can use many of the tips discussed here to enjoy a secure and trouble-free Bitcoin experience. So I'm going to leave it here today for this video. If you like listening, please consider like, sharing and subscribing. Thank you.